I'm going to read the story, David and Goliath. Be sure and look for a little lamb on each page. Once there was a young shepherd boy named David. David was a happy boy and he loved God very much. He wrote and sang many songs that told about God's power and his love for us. One day, David's father asked him to deliver some dried corn and 10 loaves of bread to his 3 older brothers. They were fighting in the army of King Saul. David left the next morning. When he got to the army camp on the mountain, he ran to see his brothers. How excited he was! But the enemy's camp was right across the valley. As David ran to his brothers, he saw a giant man named Goliath. Goliath was the biggest man David had ever seen. He was covered with shiny armor and carried a shield, a spear, and a huge sword. The Bible says that Goliath was 6 cubits and a span tall, which if you convert to feet and inches, means he was 9 feet 9 inches tall. Wow, that's really big. That's like if you stood on your daddy's shoulders. David's brothers told him that every morning and every night for 40 days, Goliath had been shouting to them to send someone out to fight him. Goliath shouted, "If any of you can defeat me, your king's army will be the winner of the entire battle." The king's soldiers were so afraid that they ran away each time they saw Goliath. But young David was not afraid. David went to the king and he told him he would fight Goliath. King Saul said, "You are much too small to fight this great giant." But David would not give up. He told the king that with God's help, he had defeated a fierce lion and a hungry bear who had stolen a lamb from his flock. David was sure that God would help him fight Goliath too. King Saul believed that God would help David, but insisted, "You must take my armor and sword to fight a giant such as Goliath." David tried on the armor and the sword, but it was too heavy for him, so he took only his staff and a sling and went down to the river. Hey, guess what? I have a sling. This is where you put the rock or the stone, and on each side is a string, and you grab it, and then you twirl it, and then you let go of one of the sides of the string, and you let that stone fly. And with enough practice, you can aim pretty good. Kind of fun, isn't it? I bet David's was very similar to this. There at the river, David found 5 smooth stones and put them in his shepherd's bag. Then David walked toward Goliath. Goliath laughed when he saw the boy coming down the mountain toward him. David said, "I am not afraid. God will help me." Then he reached into his bag and pulled out 1 smooth stone. David put a stone in his sling and hurled it toward Goliath. It hit the giant directly on the forehead. The giant fell to the ground with a thud. When the enemy soldiers saw their mighty giant had fallen, they all ran away in fear. With God's help, David had won the battle for King Saul. When you think you are too young or too small to help someone else, remember how God helped David defeat Goliath. Nothing is ever impossible for God, if only you let him help you. 1 Samuel 17:49a. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. Thanks for listening to my story. Only a boy named David. Only a boy named David, only a little little sling. Only a boy named David, but he could pray and sing. Only a boy named David, only a rippling brook. Only a boy named David, but 5 little stones he took. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And 1 little stone went up in the air, and the giant came tumbling down. Only a boy named David, only a little sling. Only a boy named David, but he could pray and sing. Only a boy named David, only a rippling brook. Only a boy named David, but 5 little stones he took. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And 1 little stone went up in the air, and the giant came tumbling down. Hit the road, Happy Toad!